Hi, Goddess Nadine here, and today I want to share with you why I actually started coaching in the first place back in 2010. So this goes back actually a few years before that, and just to kind of give you a little bit of my backstory, I've always been a huge um, fantasy nerd and sci-fi geek, and so some of my major influences are authors like Robert Heinlein, very metaphysical, sociological, and utopian sci fi author, and Buckminster Fuller, who is actually not a sci fi author but a genius who developed a lot of really cool technology. And their thinking in particular shaped my ideas of, how we could build a better world. So, in I don't remember the exact year when I first started bashing this idea around inside my brain. Um, but I know around 2008, 2009 is when I first started talking to other people about it and how we could build a better world. And we already have the technology to do this stuff, right? So my idea is basically like blank slate, redesign our societal systems based on current knowledge and technology. How could we create systems that support us rather than systems that require us to support them, right? Flip the script. And so I made an outline of four major areas that I thought, we would want to incorporate in such a new societal design. Number one is, of course, living systems. We all need food, clothing, shelter, and water. Basic human needs. Number two is support systems. We need, at least in my opinion, we don't want to go backwards, right? We don't want to return to in like agrarian society or something like that. Um, so we need energy. We need production of goods, right? I don't want to revert to a time where I don't have computers. I love my technology. We need communications, and we need systems of collecting resources, the raw materials to make all these things. Then we've also got what I call growth systems. Those are the systems of education, systems of transportation, systems of technology and scientific development, and labor coordination, of which I believe that we can pretty much automate everything and let people just live freely and do what they want. In fact, I believe that in order to create a new system, we really do need to either completely redesign or do away with our monetary system entirely. That said, yes, when you let people do what they love, they still might love to do things for others. I mean, I love doing what I do. If I could change somebody's life every day with my knowledge and wisdom and the tools that I use, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to still keep wanting to do that. I'm still going to want to keep writing books and contributing ideas to the science and technology of the world. Um, so, a system to coordinate those types of things. And then finally, maintenance systems. Maintenance systems are things like medical care, um, repair of objects as well as people, um, a legal system to make a very clear and concise system of law that serves everybody, and finally, recycling and waste management. So, like I said, back in 2008, 2009, I was, really, really excited about this concept and trying to, talk to all my friends and get people on board to actually build this thing. And not just my friends, strangers too, right? I'm like talking to everybody about this. I actually went to the Occupy Wall Street movement in 2011 um, because at the time I still hadn't written all this stuff down. And so I went there partly to force myself to write it all down, because but I also went there because I saw, like, there's this huge movement, right? All these people are protesting what exists, but they admittedly did not have a plan. They were like, we don't have a plan. We just want people to come together and start working to make the world better. And so I saw all these people without a plan, and here I am with a plan but no people. So I'm like, I gotta go there. These two things must meet. So I go to Occupy Wall Street. I actually slept there in Zuccotti Park for a week. And the first day I was there, I sat with a young man in a McDonald's so I could have my laptop plugged in pretty much all day, and banged out this concept into a Word document. And I'd write a few paragraphs, and then I'd speak them to him, and he'd give me feedback, and I'd refine them, and then I'd write a few more. So I ended up with an 8-page document. At the time, I was broke, no joke. And I literally got there, I had like $11 left, I think, after getting a standby fare flight. And so I didn't have the money to print this. So the rest of the weeks I was there, I went and I just talked to people. And I said, listen, I have a great idea for how we can make the world a better place. And it's 8 pages long. I don't have the money to print that many documents. But can I get your email and send it to you? And I promise that's the only thing I'm going to send you. It's an 8-page PDF. I'm not going to spam you. I'll never email you again unless you ask me to. So in the course of a week, I collected 300 emails through these conversations with people. And I met some of the 1%. Talked with them. And everybody was on board. Like, they're like, yeah, that's a great idea. But it probably won't happen for another 100 years. Like, we'll get there in 100 years. Or they'd say, well, that's a great idea, but there's no way to get there without having a bloody revolution and tearing down everything that exists. Or they'd say, well, that's a great idea, but what would people do all day if they didn't have to earn money and, make a living? Such a weird, that whole phrase thing just totally blows my mind still. And then finally, one of the most common, after I walked them through everything, right? This technology actually already exists. We have the technology to automate skyscraper farms and be able to feed everybody locally, right? You can build a skyscraper farm, maybe 3 or 4 for big major cities like Phoenix, metro area, New York, LA, maybe more in more crowded cities like Delphi. But we have the technology to do this, like, already. And now we have even better technology. This is like 14 years later. We have the technology to produce clothing. In fact, in the 1970s, there was an automated loom that was producing woven clothing. Do you think your mass-produced clothing is produced by humans right now? No, it's not, right? It's already made by machines. Shelter, and this was, again, like, after 2008 with the housing crash, we had, even before the housing crash, we had more unoccupied homes in America than there were homeless people. Not only that, but if you eliminate a monetary system, then a lot of make-work jobs disappear, right? If we don't have a monetary system, we don't need cashiers, which is the number one form of employment in the United States at the time. I haven't looked it up recently, but at the time when I was doing this research, you don't need cashiers, you don't need banks, you don't need insurance companies. There's a whole lot of make work around the concept of money and having a monetary system. So if you eliminate the need for all of that labor and business, then there you go. You got tons of empty skyscrapers that could be repurposed for different things, better things, people things. And finally, water. I don't know about you, but I don't like city water. I go and get filtered water that doesn't taste like chemicals and chlorine. I think we could do a much better job of filtering our water. And there are ways to desalinate water. We've got people talk about running out of water. We've got enough water on the planet. Okay, the problem is how we're managing it. So that is definitely part of the new systems that I would want to incorporate is ways to deliver fresh, clean drinking water to everyone. Um, as far as support systems go, energy production, uh, man, there's a lot to unpack in that. That's worthy of a whole different video on its own. But we do have better ways of producing clean energy. Um, I think, yeah, I'll leave that. I'm gonna come back to that in another video because literally that's probably a 15-minute talk by itself. Production of goods. Again, most of what we have is already automated. Robots build your cars. If robots build your cars, then robots can also fix your cars, right? Um, do you think your cell phone was produced by a human being sitting there and putting all those little parts together? No. Our technology and the majority of our goods already is automated production. So in this scenario, what I envision is having basically a factory system where, kind of like the skyscraper farms, there's 2 or 3 of these production facilities that can produce anything and everything in each major area, and scattered around so that they're close enough to rural areas. So how I envision this working is if an individual has an idea for something they want and they design it, they can submit it to be produced by our automated factories. And by default, because again, we've created this free society, any design produced through the automated systems would mean that that design was available to others to reproduce as well. However, so we don't really need, to have IP so much. That said, raw materials, like say for an artist, if an artist needs paint and canvas, they can get those items produced through the automated production facility. But then, of course, their art remains their own, right? They don't have to like send in and say, well, here's the automated production facility, you can have my art. I do envision a world where we are free to barter and trade with each other, do whatever we want, give it away, keep it, whatever. Just to clarify that. But it is eminently possible for the production of goods to be on demand. We already have a lot of on demand production, like print on demand, for example. I think doing this will eliminate so much waste. Not only, the goods that are produced that are never purchased, but in essence, right now, what we have is a system where every little innovation is eked out over years. I think it was I can't remember the name. One of the big tech companies said that they're planning stuff out. I knew somebody that worked, in their development R&D department, and he said they're planning stuff out like 6 years ahead, meaning that the technology already exists, but they're releasing it in little dribs and drabs in order to capture each single penny that they can to these micro improvements. Other countries, like Japan, for instance, their cell phone technology is so far ahead of ours, and a lot of like their just common things that you encounter in public, like vending machines, their system of transit, way far advanced. So the technology already exists, but we're not applying it in this country or many places because our companies have this thing called planned obsolescence, where they release increments of technology. So that's why you got to buy a new phone every couple years. That's why you got to buy a new car or washing machine or whatever. So I think if we changed our systems, we could go back to building things to last, building things at the state of the art immediately instead of waiting, 10 years for that to hit the market. Um, and it would just be a lot better and a lot less wasteful overall. As well, these factories could be used, and I know this is in the maintenance systems part of things, but these factories could also be used to recycle and repurpose goods. I envision a system where, as well as going to get your new stuff from these factory centers, you could also donate things that you don't need any longer or don't want any longer. And other people could come in and choose from those things to take, or if it's an obsolete piece of tech or something like that, then the factory can reclaim the materials and use it to make more new stuff. Anyway, a lot to be said about that. I don't want to wander too far into that topic. For growth systems, and this is where, of course, I'm really fascinated myself as an educator. Education is so important, and we are not currently educating our young or our adults in the best way possible. With current technology, and this is even, back in 2008, before AI was even on the horizon, we still had technology that would enable us to develop a much better delivery of an education system. Now, with AI, and using neurolinguistic programming to understand how our minds work, and this is my personal project. Like, this is the one side of things that I want to be personally involved with, interviewing people who are successful, who are knowledgeable in their fields, and using NLP to model their knowledge into a system. And then on the other end, for the receiver of the education, the system would, ask them questions. The system would get to know them as an individual and teach them based on how well they learn and based on their interests and drive and motivation. So each child from the beginning could receive a completely customized yet fully developed education. And not just an education of facts and data and things to memorize, but an education that actually encourages curiosity and creativity and teaches our generations how to learn effectively, how to think critically. Two of these most important skills that really aren't being taught in our current systems. So that, of course, is what I'm most passionate about. Systems of transportation. Back then, we didn't have automated driving vehicles yet, so I thought we could have a system of actually RFID chips along every road that would communicate with beacons and cars and transmit that data further, kind of like I forget what it's called, a web application. I'll have to look that up. But basically, this system of small transmitters would transmit data about road conditions. And of course, it would allow cars to steer based on the boundaries of the road. It would also detect other vehicles and manage, the flow of traffic. Now, of course, we have self-driving vehicles already driving around, at least in Phoenix. I don't know, I haven't even looked how widespread it is, but you can order up a Waymo and get in, and it's a driverless vehicle, and it just takes you to your destination. Now imagine that, wide scale. I think people will still want their personal vehicles, but last I checked, and again, this was in 2008 or 9 when I did all this research, we had like 2.1 vehicles per person of driving age in the United States of consumer vehicles, right? Not to mention the fleets of trucks and um, other types of large vehicles, which if we decentralized production of goods and food, we wouldn't really need a lot of mass transportation. And of course, now we've also got stuff like drones. So you wouldn't even necessarily have to go to the factory to pick up your new piece of thing that you ordered. You could just order it and a drone would bring it to you. I mean, we've got the technology already. It exists. So, um, what else? Technology and science. You know, this was one of the sticking points, right? When I was talking to people about this, they were like, well, what's going to keep driving people to, you know, if they don't have to earn a paycheck, if they don't have to go work to pay to live, what's going to motivate people to actually still do work? And I'm like, dude, hold on here. I have created my life to where I don't have to go work for somebody else. I do still have to make money somehow, but I'm sure I'm not alone in that. And I have worked soul-sucking jobs, okay? And in fact, a lot of that experience is what motivated me to want to change things, because nobody should have to live like that. And if you free people up from those soul-sucking jobs, from that forced labor of you have to work 40, 60 hours a week just to survive, if you free people from that yoke, we all have a natural creative spark, right? There's very few people that might want to just be lazy all day. And you know what? Even if they are, let them. Buckminster Fuller in 1974 in Operation Manual for Spaceship Earth talked about this. And he was talking about in the sense of universal basic income. Either way, what's to stop somebody from going fishing for 20 years? And he goes, let them. When you go fishing, you get a lot of clarity, right? You're just sitting there thinking. We need people to sit around thinking about things, to think deep thoughts. We need that. That's what you know what, they might spend 20 years fishing and come out with a poem that perfectly enlightens the world when they hear the poem. You know, like there's no wrong way to think. And we need people to have time and space to think those kinds of deep thoughts, to come to those realizations and to share it with the world. I'm driven by my curiosity. I'm driven by my creative ideas that I want to bring forth into the world. Even if I had no money, I would still be doing that. In fact, my my motivation was my stress when I didn't have enough money and had to, you know, as I thought of it back then, you know, I had all these huge dreams and goals and ambitions, but I was stuck down here having to do the daily grind just to survive. And that motivated me. That's what motivated me to talk about designing a better world, right? Like, why does this exist? Why are people forcing themselves to undergo this kind of excruciating survival, bare level existence when we have the capability to do so much more? So, again, we have the technology. I don't think that reducing people's necessity of working for others is going to take away from their drive to create more, to do more research, to learn more things. In fact, I think it will only enhance that drive, right? By freeing people up from the stress. And then, of course, maintenance systems, like I said, medical care. We already have We already have robotic surgeries, not for everything, but we've got, the science exists. And I think if we really focused on that, it could be quickly ramped up to where you could just go and step into an auto doc and it would diagnose you and automatically, do your labs, do your x-rays or CT scans or anything that you need and fix you up right then and there. If it is necessary to do surgery or anything like that, or schedule you. Ultimately, yes, we can totally automate medical care, and we're already well on the way there. And like I said earlier, with other repairs of things like vehicles or appliances, whatever, robots already build them. Robots can certainly be trained to repair them. A legal system, now, that again is probably something that's worthy of its own video. Very briefly, in the United States right now, or actually again back in 2008 when I was doing all this research, I read somewhere that the United States federal law book, the federal books of law have over 1 million laws in them. And the IRS, the Internal Revenue System, the entity that taxes us, has over 2 million laws on the books. That kind of seems a little extreme. I mean, I don't think anybody can memorize 1 million laws, let alone 3 million laws, and absolutely follow them. No, our system has grown incredibly complicated, far more so than it needs to be. And so I think we need to redraft a constitution, a brand new constitution, and a new system of law that's simple and that impinges on each individual's freedom as little as possible. I really like Robert Heinlein's concept in Coventry, which was the sequel to Revolt in 2100, when the freedom fighters overthrew America's dictatorial religious government, which had developed in his prior books. Anyway, in Coventry, they had basically pared down the laws to where you had ultimate personal freedom as long as that freedom doesn't impinge on anybody else's freedom. And the story is told through the lens of a young man who loses his temper and punches somebody in the face because that somebody said something that triggered him. And of course, in this future utopian America, they have psychological treatments, which we actually have now with NLP. But they had psychological treatments that could recondition a person to get rid of those violent tendencies or the belief that it's okay to harm somebody else if your feelings are hurt. Or the person could leave, right? They're like, we've created this agreement. We have this society that is based on the agreement. And if you don't agree to follow the agreement, then you can leave us, right? Like, we're not going to put you in prison. We're not going to harm you. We're not going to torture you. We're not going to punish you in any way. But your options are to undergo treatment to become a compliant citizen where you don't harm anybody else. You don't impinge anybody else's freedom. Or you can leave. Simple. So I definitely think that we should model a legal system based around the principles of, what my goal is to increase the net amount of personal freedom for everybody on the planet. And of course, there are other things like environmental concerns. Again, with the cessation of mass production. Oh, and I forgot. we actually have the technology to make vehicles that run on water. So we can eliminate it, and not just vehicles, but we can use this technology to power other things, like our energy production. And yes, we do have methods that can generate more energy than they take. All this stuff exists. So these, well, we have like who knows how many environmental impact laws. That definitely should be a part of our new constitution, because of course, if you're harming the environment that we all live in, then you're ultimately harming all of us, right? But that's something, again, with the cessation of mass production as it is now, the cessation of needing long distance transportation, the cessation of people having to go to work and commute every day, I think our pollution levels might drop quite a bit, don't you? So anyway, that feed talks into our recycling and waste management system. So many landfills right now would be eliminated, again, with the production of goods and food facilities that I envision. Right now, there's so much waste in packaging alone, right? Like, you buy a box of cereal, what do you got? You got a cardboard box, you got a plastic sleeve, maybe you got your cereal in a bag, so it's just a bag. But I envision a system where we have the food production, for example, and people just recycle the containers, right? Like, you get everything in a plastic sealed, like, Tupperware type container or a glass jar, and whenever you order new stuff, you just return your empties. Simple. Doesn't have to be that complicated. We don't need, if we're all just, living freely, we don't need marketing and branding and advertising and all that stuff. People know what they like, right? You want some Post Honey Bunches of Oats with almonds? There it is. You want to create a brand new cereal and name it Reba's Sweet Surprise? Then go for it, right? Put your recipe in. Everybody can download it, make it, whatever. But we already have the technology. We could do so much better than we are. And the main reason that we're not doing this, again, comes back to money, right? What if we automate? Every time new automation is introduced, there's a huge outcry, right? People's jobs. People need jobs. No, they don't. In fact, in America today, I recently heard this, and again, I've not verified this, but it sounds pretty reasonable. Only approximately 13% of American workers actually work in production of anything. The rest of it's all make work stuff. We don't need jobs. The only reason we need jobs right now is to keep the wheels of our made up monetary system spinning, to keep those gears going. It's made up. It's a made up concept. Money doesn't exist. It's a digital world as it is, right? How many of you use your credit, your debit cards? Money's not changing hands anymore. It's all just numbers on a computer being passed one to another. Even if you have cash, it's not based on anything real. They can just print it whenever they want. So I think it's time to wake up and realize that it's a made-up concept. It served a purpose in the past, which was good. But at this point in our evolution, I think that we can move beyond that and actually do this. Actually automate everything. Let people live freely. And let's just all do what we love and share what we love with the people we love to share it with. So that is why I started coaching back in 2010, because people were like, well, people just aren't ready for this. And so I was like, I guess I gotta teach people this stuff so that they can be ready. So I kind of buried it. I put the concept on the back burner. I did talk about it. I referenced it on my website, but now I believe the time is ripe to really start pushing this concept again. And as you know, I also teach self-mastery for conscious manifestation, and that is how you make your own world better. I believe when we have enough people doing that, it's going to make our world better. But I don't want to put this on the back burner anymore. I want to bring it to the forefront. And this is my vision for humanity. A humanity that is free to do what they love what they do, and just live life on the best terms.